Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Got a slightly early start here, so we'll give people a minute before we really dive in. The training will last about an hour and a half to an hour and 45. I'll try to keep it as close to the hour and a half as possible. If you have any questions about anything I go over, please feel free to make use of the chat feature in YouTube. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we do record these trainings, and in fact, we store them here on our YouTube channel, so you can always come back and view the trainings at any time, or leave if other things get in the way, and come back and watch it at your leisure. Also, the advantage of having the recordings is you can get the link for them and send them to other colleagues who also need to be admins on your Dash account. Let's go ahead and get started here. You have our Dash login page here on the screen. We need 3 pieces of information to get logged in, right? We need your email address, typically the one you use to sign up with us or that your system admin used to create your user. Then we need your password, which again should have been emailed to you. And then lastly, we need the account name, right? Typically your company name. Obviously, if you sign up for this with personal use and you used your name as the account name, then that would go here. Now, if for some reason you don't have the information or you forgot, or maybe the system is saying you have the wrong password, over here just above the sign-in bar to the bottom right, we have a forgot your info link, and you can click on that, and then you have a little form to fill out. So we still need your email address, right? That's unique for each user. And then we need one of these two, right? So we need to either need the account name or a phone number on the account, right? So like one of your customer-facing phone numbers. You click on Reset Password. The system's going to send you an email with a link to basically get you logged in, and that link gives you enough access to change your password. Excuse me. After you do that, it will log you out. Take you back to the login page. Helps if I'm in the right box. And mostly that's so you can click on the Remember Me box down here at the bottom left. And then we click Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I've logged into regularly with. So by default, the system is taking me right to the dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, you're actually not going to be taken here right away. You're instead going to be taken to your user account page. Now, you can always get to your user account page by going up here to the top right and clicking on your name. And here it dumps me here into my user page. So again, for that first login, this is where you're going to start off. The Dash wizard will start, right? It's a little pop-up boxes telling you what certain features are. The main thing that people change here is their password. Now, as an admin, I also have access to the account level settings over here on the left. Most common thing that's changed here is the time zone. Right, so you can't edit this information, right? Your account name, etc. For that, you'd actually have to talk to our billing team. Now, this is a test account, so I don't have everything you have. So for your accounts, underneath where it says user here on the left, there's going to be a billing area. That's where you would update your credit card. Right? You can see your current service plan, see your invoices, and you can also see who the billing contact is, and that's who we send the invoices to. They're actually the owner of the account, right? So they're the ones who can make plan changes, or rather approve plan changes, as well as cancel the account. Or they're also the name we look for for porting out purposes. Now, when you're done here, just over here to the top right, you want to click on Close, and then you'll see your dashboard page. So again, up here to your right, click on your name. That'll take you to your account page. For many of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle, right? D&D for Do Not Disturb. If you click on it, it's going to make it white, right? Turn it on, and that means you're not accepting calls, right? So if someone dials your extension number, they're going straight to voicemail. If you're in a group, right, your phone won't ring, which could change how group routing is working. I don't have that next to my name because I'm part of an ACD queue. So ACD queues and do not disturb don't play well together as features go. Then here to the right, we have a little question mark icon, right? The help icon. Now, typically this has 3 items here. I have an extra one and I'll explain that in a little bit here. But first off, we have chat with us. This opens a chat window at the bottom right of your browser window. So you can speak to one of the support staff and they can help walk you through whatever feature you're working with. Learn more, this opens a new tab. Takes you to our support pages directly so you can see the various guides we have created, typically with screenshots. Some of them also have videos about their specific features and how to enable them or make use of them. We have the online store. This opens a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. That's where you can order things like a VoIP phone or a router, among other things. Now, the one that may not show up for you, or typically doesn't show up for you right away, is the web phone. This shows up after you've added a web phone device to your user. All right, so you've added a new device that's in the specific web phone. Then this will show up here the next time you log in, typically. When you click on this, this opens a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. All right, web phone. All right, next up we have the hamburger icon or the menu icon. This takes you to other Dash features. Now, for most of this training, we'll be here in the dashboard because it has all these sub-tabs over on the left. But we will be touching on most of these. Some of them, like dynamic caller ID, these are plan-specific features, meaning you have to be on the correct plan to have the feature. So you may need to upgrade. And then we have the logout icon here to the far right. Now here in the center, we have my total users, right? These are my staff members who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you have, the more your bill. Then we have breakdown of total devices, right? I have 38 different kinds of devices on my account. Not necessarily all of them assigned to my users. And then we have little buckets here, right? Little breakdown here. Soft phone, software application that acts like a phone. So it uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. This could include the VirtualPBX soft phone app. This can include someone else's soft phone app. All right. Then we got cell phone. Most of us know what a cell phone is. Then we got the web phone. Again, that Chrome or Firefox on a computer. And then SIP phone. This is a piece of hardware. Right? This is a phone sits on your desk, still connects via the internet. Right? Has an Ethernet cable, typically gets to your router, then out to the internet. There are so like the SIP phone, the soft phone, and the web phone, right? These are all considered VoIP phones, right? Voice over Internet Protocol. That's what VoIP stands for. Just means uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. There are other kinds of VoIP phones on the market in terms of physical hardware, right? So SIP is a subtype of VoIP phones. There are other protocols that are used by other manufacturers. So if you're out shopping and it doesn't mention SIP specifically, you don't want to buy it, at least not for use with us. Unregistered devices, it says I have 2. This is actually in relation to my SIP phones. So I'm saying 2 of my physical phones are offline. That means I can't send calls to it. All right, total numbers. These are my phone numbers on my account. I have 34, which is a fairly decent amount. Your plans include at least some amount of phone numbers, right? Anywhere from 1 to 15 is our typical range. So if I'm on a typical plan, then I am paying an overage for more than half of my phone numbers. Usually that's, at least if you just recently signed up, the overages for local or toll-free numbers is $1.99 per month. But if you're on an older plan, you'd want to double check with our account services team. All right, so then we have a breakdown here, assigned numbers and spare numbers. Right? Assigned means I'm using it. It goes someplace. Right? Someone can dial that number and speak to someone, leave a voicemail, join a conference, send a fax. Spare number, right, still counts towards my allotment. I'm just not using it right now. So say, for instance, I'm about to open a new location in a different city that has a different area code. I can get a number ahead of time. Okay? It'll be a spare number, but that way I have it ready so I can start making my marketing materials, right? Put it up on the website, if it's it's a storefront, so I can have, hey, here's a flyer with the phone number of the new location. All right. Next breakdown here, I have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? It's an 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. USDID, that just means US local number, right? So if you have a number in, say, Elmira, New York, right, counts as a USDID, just the same as if it was in San Jose, California. You can have international numbers on your account if you would like. You just need to send an email to our porting team. That's porting@virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in. If there are additional requirements to get a number in that particular country, the porting team will let you know. They'll also let you know if it's possible or not. Right? It's like, no, we can't get numbers there, etc. Conference bridges, I have 4. That means I have enabled the conference feature on 4 of my users. All that means is those users can host or moderate a conference. Right? All my other staff can join a conference, but only 4 of them are actually in charge of the conferences. Over here to the top right, I have my main numbers. These 5 phone numbers all behave in the same fashion, right? So they're all going to the same location. They all have the same main greeting. Next up, I have conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers, but they all end up going to the same location. Everyone who's joining a conference would need to dial this 408 number, whether they're my staff members, my clients, or my vendors. Right? Whoever's joining this conference, they would dial that same phone number and then enter the conference room number and PIN number. The fax box number, you can have the one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. Company directory, this downloads a CSV file to your device. So then you can see everyone's names, their extension numbers, and their primary devices. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application for Windows or Mac. So you would download this file, right, and then you would upload it to the VirtualPBX soft phone app on your computer. This will let you see the status of the other soft phones on your account. Right? So if my colleague Mike is using his soft phone and he's on a call, right, I'll see, oh, he's on a call. I shouldn't give him one, right? I should wait until he's done. Now, if your staff has a mix of devices, so let's say my colleague Mike has a soft phone, but he also has a Yealink phone. Right? I'm never going to see on my soft phone if he's using that Yealink. Right? I can only tell if he's on the soft phone. All right, store discount code. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use within our online store. Right? That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then we have the account realm. This is used for a couple things. One, it's used to program a third-party soft phone. Right? There's 3 pieces of information we provide. This is one of those that you would need to program or provision that device. The other thing that is used is for sending out a fax. So on Dash, you don't need to log into Dash to send a fax out. You actually just need to create an email. Once you do, in the to field, +, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, little @ symbol, then your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file. Right? The system doesn't look at the subject line of your email. It doesn't look at the body of your email. It looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. 1 attachment per email. Right? Needs to be in that +1 area code and phone number format. Needs to come from an email address that's associated with a user on the account. Up here at the top, we have caller ID. Let me click on that. Expands it out. Now this is for your company caller ID. This is going to be where you select what is your default number for your account. This pull down, which unfortunately doesn't work properly on my streaming software, shows all your main numbers, right? So those 5 phone numbers we saw under that main number block, you can pick any one of them. The company caller ID name, or CNAME, this is optional. But in the box here to the right, you can enter in up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. This is what we will transmit in addition to your phone number when you make outbound calls from a VoIP phone. And then we have the company emergency information. All right, this is something the system wants you to input. It wants a North American address. And then you click on Save Changes. So if you put in information here for the CNAM, right, after you click Save Changes, this information gets transmitted to the other carriers that support CNAM, right? They update their servers. It takes them about 3 business days. And the point of CNAM is you pick up your VoIP phone, you make an outbound call, right? So this phone number would show up as your outbound caller ID, and this information would also get transmitted as part of your caller ID. Now, for the purposes of CNAM, not every carrier supports CNAM. That's a company decision, right? Business decision. So if your call happens to route through one of those, your CNAM information doesn't reach your destination. All right. Basically, we can't guarantee that your CNAM information gets to the destination. Actually, and technically, within the telecom industry, no one can, because it's we can provide. What we do is called the provisioning aspect, right? We said, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we send out. The receiving side of it, they might be pulling the CNAM information for that phone number from a different database that we don't have access to. Probably even more problematic is when you're calling cell phones. The cell phone providers, right? They're the ones who put like spam risk or telemarketer as part of the caller ID on phone, on calls that are going to their subscribers. Right. So the mobile telecoms, right? They control all the information that gets displayed on the phones on their network. Like my carrier, they want to charge $10 a month for me to have company caller ID show up on every call that comes to my cell phone. I don't want to pay $10 a month for it, so I don't. So I have calls that don't, don't show up with anything other than the phone number. And that's not something we can control either. All right, hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own files. It can playback .wav and .mp3 files. You want to record in mono. The system will let you upload a stereo file without a problem. But in terms of playback, when you call in over the phone, you're going to want mono because phones in general have only one speaker. And they sometimes have problems playing back a stereo file. And currently, the file size is limited to 1 megabyte. You can also use this as a pull down to see any other files that you already have on your system. Now, in terms of hold music for this feature, this is defined as after a call has reached one of your users and they've answered the call with a VoIP phone, and then they press hold on that VoIP phone. That's when this hold music file plays. Right, up until then, the inbound caller is hearing the ringing sound. All right, hours is actually part of main number. So let's just go to main number and work our way down. Up here at the top, main company numbers. Right, that shows the 5 numbers that I have. Any place you can add a number, you'll have the option to either add from spare numbers, which I click here. This will show my available numbers I already have. Right, so I can reuse a number. Right, I can unassign it, say I don't want to use it here. Now it's a spare number, and then I go where I want to use it, add from spare, and then I can reuse that number. Or you can buy new numbers, and that's just a system adding numbers to your account. Right, so even if you complete the process of under buy numbers, you're not instantly charged anything. Right, and especially if you're under your account allotment. Right, so let's say you're at 3 phone numbers, and your plan allows you to have 5. You're not going to have an extra charge when you add that 4th phone number, unless it's an international number, which gets into different kinds of scenarios. Anyway, so under by numbers, you have local or toll-free. Toll-free, you choose your toll-free prefix you want to work with, and then you click search. and it will give you a list of numbers that are available. All right, and you can scroll down to keep viewing more numbers. Any number you like, you just click add next to it. It puts it in your little cart. Right, you see it here. You can remove it from the cart. You can add multiple numbers at once. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this list of numbers is a dynamic list, meaning you're actually competing with other people in real time. Right, so if I added this number like this, right, into my cart, and then let's say my girlfriend swung by, surprised me, said, hey, let's go to lunch. Right, so I'm like, okay, cool. I go to lunch, we have a good time. I come back and I try to complete this process. It may not work because someone else may have come along in that time and grabbed the number and completed the process. Now, the likelihood of all of that happening, fairly small, but something to be aware of. In terms of buying the number, right, you just click buy numbers. The system verifies that no one took the number while I was talking here, and then adds it here to the account. Should update, there we go. And here's that new number. Right, for local numbers, you need to know the area code. Now, when you type in the area code, you do a search, you may get this message, right? Sorry, there's nothing available. That means this area code is exhausted. Not that it's tired, but that there's no readily available numbers for it. So what you would want to do typically in this scenario is go back to search and enter in a different area code, specifically an overlay area code for that area. So 310 is in Southern California, near Los Angeles. 424 is its actual overlay, meaning that 310 and 424, they cover the same geographic area, right? The same boundaries, right? For some place like Los Angeles, maybe also worthwhile looking for nearby area codes, right? So you can go back to search and you can look up like 323 and see if anything's available. And there's nothing there, right? And so I use Google all the time to double check what area codes have are nearby each other or overlay each other. All right, once you've added a number, you have a little gear icon here to the right, so you can update the caller ID, right? So the CNAM information is up here, and then you have the ability to turn on it to accept inbound CNAM information. Cancel. E911, you can set up the E911 address for each of your phone numbers on your account. This is important because then this will allow you to assign these different E911 locations to your VoIP phones, right? So that way, if you have people at working at remote locations, you can assign the correct address for that location based on the phone numbers you have on your account. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Right, so it gives them a heads up about what the call might be about. Now, if you don't want to use a phone number, then you can unassign it. Oops, I double clicked on that. So now it's removed from this area, right? But now it's just a spare number. And when we get to the numbers tab over here on the left, we'll talk about how to delete a number from the account completely. All right, so once you have 9 numbers, then you can set up your office hours. Now, by default, your account starts off at 24-hour open office, right? Meaning you're open 24/7. Right? If you choose custom office hours, then for each day of the week, you put a check mark, right? Saying, hey, I'm open on Mondays. And then in these boxes here to the right, you select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Now down here at the bottom, you have the option to say you're closed for lunch, right? So if you put a check mark here, then you can enter your lunch hours, again, in that 24-hour or military time. And then when you're done, you would click on Save Changes. I'm just going to go ahead and undo that. Next up, we have office holidays. First up, are you closed for holidays? If you are, then over here, you would click on New Holiday. You have your options for single day, date range, or advanced. It's pretty straightforward. Single day, I have like here, right here for New Year's Eve. Right, you give it a name, you select the month and the date, click on Save Changes. Right, date range, like I have for Xmas break. Again, give it a name, start date and end date, then Save Changes. Now, there's no year indicator, so for date range, just for safety's sake, we recommend not having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day together. Right, separate them out, and then you can have like a date range leading up to New Year's Eve and a date range starting from New Year's Day. Then advanced is like I have here for Thanksgiving. Again, give it a name, choose the month, and then in the second pull down here, you choose 1st through 5th or last, and then the day of the week, right? And then Save Changes. Now we have the big thing, incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, during my open hours, how do I want the system to treat the calls, right? And these are my options. I had the same options here for during my after hours and as for my holidays. All right, so this first option here comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist or auto attendant, right? When you click on that, looks like my main greeting was taken away. But here we go, is you have your main menu, right? This is what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. You can click on Add Route. That creates a new row, right? So then this pull down, you have 0 through 9 and the star key. And then on the second pull down, you tell it where you want it to go. So, right, you've got the smart PBX directory, right? The dial by name directory. You have a user, meaning a specific person. Call queues, this would be if you're making use of ACD queues. You can send a menu option to them. So like your support team. Groups, these are departments. So queues and groups are somewhat related, right? Groups are simple. Basically, you have limited routing options. They're included with basically every plan. But basically, a department. So like if you have like a small department of like 2 people, you probably don't need an ACD queue. You can just use a group, have them both in the group. Call comes in, rings them both. Or you can have them ring in, one person first, second person. Devices, you can have a menu option go to a specific phone. This isn't always recommended because if that phone doesn't have built-in voicemail, the person just stays, keeps ringing until someone picks up or they give up. So not always a great experience for the inbound caller. And you can also send menu options to a voicemail box. You also have the option for a media file, right? So this would be like playing like hours of operation or directions. However, once the media file stops playing, the call ends. And then you have advanced call flows. This is if you're going to make use, typically in this location, for submenuing, right? So like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. You would have secondary auto attendants, 1 named English, 1 named Spanish, with their relevant greeting, right? A Spanish greeting for the Spanish auto attendant. And then the menu options there would then go to your Spanish-speaking staff members, right? Whereas the English would go to your English-speaking staff members. Over here on the right, we have greetings, and then your greeting option types. So text-to-speech, you can type in a greeting here. You have 250 characters to work with. Does not count spaces, though. But not words, right? 250 characters versus 250 words, those are vastly different. So it's 250 characters. When you click Update, Save, and Save Changes, the system will save the file with the file name it creates. Specifically, it will call this one main open hours menu TTS, right? Because I'm in my open hours tab, right? We're talking about the main menu, and that's a text-to-speech greeting. So let's say I type one in here. I don't like it. Let's say I make a test call. I'm like, oh, that didn't sound quite right. I come back and edit it, update, save, and save changes. Now I'm going to have 2 files called main open hours menu TTS. And the reason that can be a problem is from any pull down option to select a greeting, right? Then you have 2 files that look the same and you have no idea which one is which. My suggestion is if you make use of text-to-speech, like especially if you're just starting out, like you have no idea how your phone system will work. You have a startup company, or you've never used a PBX system before. Then when you use text-to-speech greeting, when you first create one, update, save changes, on the left here, you have a greetings tab. You want to go there after you create it and then rename the file. Right? So it's something that you can, so that way in case you edit it, it'll resave it, then you have 2 different file names. Right? And each time you have a text-to-speech, I would say change the name of it so you can find it easily. You can upload your own file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Just find the file on your computer. You would click update and then save and save changes, right? This little box here lets you change the file name, right? So you can choose what it's saved as on your system. You can choose from existing recordings. So this pull down would show your available recordings. This includes voicemail greetings, any main greetings, hold music, right? So that's why that file name could be important. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, here, make sure my settings are right. When it says pick up a phone registered on the account, that means use a VoIP phone. If you want to use a cell phone or landline, so let's say you signed up today, you also ordered VoIP phones from us directly, right? So obviously you don't have the VoIP phones in your possession, but you want to record a greeting over the phone. The way around that is under the settings here, where it says allow outside recording, you want to turn this on. Now you don't need to use a VoIP phone, right? You can just call in from your cell phone or landline. Now you're still going to need this PIN number, right? This PIN number is specific to the time of day for this account, right? So I set my hours for 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If I call at 7 p.m., right, I'm in after hours, which means this PIN no longer works, right? So that means you can only change your main greeting for the time that your system is in, right? So if I want to change my open hours greeting, I have to call in during my open hours. The other thing to know is for recording over the phone, when you first start off, right, the system, when you call your main number, right, the system tells you that no greeting has been recorded for this menu, and it will prompt you for the PIN number. But let's say you typed in a text-to-speech greeting first. Now you want to record over the phone because it didn't sound right. You're like, I want people to hear my voice. So when you call in, right, you hear that initial text-to-speech greeting, then you can still enter the PIN number at that point. The system will recognize it and say, oh, you want to record a greeting. Then it starts walking you through how to record a greeting over the phone. Now, when it does in that scenario, right, you already have a greeting in place and you're recording a new one over the phone, the system doesn't have an option to allow you to give it a file name. So it just uses the file name that was already in place, right? So let's say you typed in greeting A under text-to-speech, right? You called in, you're like, that's not what I wanted. So then you called in, entered the PIN number, read off your script. The system, right, overwrote the text-to-speech greeting, right? But it's kept the file name, right? So greeting file A is now your voice. And I point that out just because during holiday times, that can become an issue for people, right? You don't want to lose your normal greeting because you overwrote it with the, Thanksgiving greeting. Professional recording services, when you click order here, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, and you can order a greeting from them. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They charge your credit card. They send the file to you via email, and then you just simply upload your own file. All right, settings. So these first two, it's easier for me to explain them together, right? So number of retries on misdial and dialing timeout. So number of retries on misdial is how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake, right? They automatically get 1 attempt, right? If you put 1 here, now they have 2, right? Because they get 1 mistake, means 2 attempts. Dialing timeout is how long the system listens after it hears a button press before it assumes the caller is done. So the caller calls in, here's the greeting, and let's say they press 7. Right? That's not a menu option here. And we'll say for the sake of argument, I don't have an extension number 7. The system waits to a count of 5 to basically see if the person calling you was entering an extension number, right? But the person just hit the 7 is waiting, right? So then the system says there was an invalid entry. It replays the greeting again, lets the caller make a second attempt. So let's say they press 9. Waits to 5 again. Nope, no other buttons, no menu option, no extension. Now it says we did not recognize your entry. Now, I have a default action set up right here, this last option. So after that last failed attempt in that 5 seconds, the system will send the caller to the PBX directory. If I don't have a default action, let's say I click on the little X here, after that second attempt, the system will just say, we did not recognize your entry, and then goodbye, and end the call. Now, the one reason why you may not want the default action is because of robodialers. Right? Robodialers can call into your main number, hear your greeting play a few times until you're out of retries, and then if you have a default action, right, the robodialer ends up in your default action, right? And that's using up minutes on your plan. All right, we already talked about the allow outside recording. So here we have allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. And what that means is when the inbound caller calls in, if they enter a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. If I turn this off, that means that my inbound callers, they can only press these menu options, right? If they know the extension number, doesn't matter. The system will treat that as an invalid option. And then here we have the suppress the playing of that invalid entry message I was talking about previously. So if I don't want that message to play, I click on this and turn it on. So now the sorry, we did not recognize your entry message will no longer play to my inbound caller. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you need to click save here, right? You're taking back to incoming call handling, and then you need to click save changes here, right? You're clicking save twice. Now the second option here, this is actually your live operator answer option. So it's designed to let you give a staff member or multiple staff members an opportunity to answer the call first. If they're not able to pick up, then it goes to your virtual receptionist. All right, so this pull down, not quite sure why it goes to the directory as an option, but typically you're going to select either a single user, possibly a call queue, or a ring group, right? Those are the most commonly used here. You can have it go to a device because after about 20 seconds, the system will then still send it to the virtual receptionist. You also have the option for media file. I don't recommend it. That's because you'll have 2 media files play back to back, right? You'll have the media file you select here, and then whatever media file you have on under the virtual receptionist. And again, this is that same receptionist we were looking at. Because we're still under open hours. Now, if I change to after hours, and let's say I change it to this option, right, I have a different virtual receptionist, which would make sense, right? For after hours, I'd probably have a different greeting and likely have different menu options. All right, third option, this is where you can offer the call to somebody, or, right, so you can, again, offer it to users, groups, queues, etc. for 20 seconds. Or, I think it's still the last option here. Yeah, or you can just send caller straight to voicemail. And then the second pull down, you select the voicemail box you want the caller to end up at. Could be used for office hour, after hours. Usually I see it more often on holidays, especially for like a small business where, hey, I want to spend, Thanksgiving with my family. I'm going to send all the calls to voicemail and I'll get back to them after the Thanksgiving holiday, for example. This fourth option here only shows up in a few cases, right? By default, you always have those first three. This fourth one shows up is if our team created an advanced call flow for you, right? So you have some kind of custom configuration, or if your account has auto attendants or multiple auto attendants, and you've made one of those secondary attendants available in the main menu, right? Under those two scenarios, you can have calls go, and then you would select one of your advanced call flows. So I can have it go to my Spanish auto attendant. Now, this affects my main numbers. So now I'm telling all my customers, hey, you're going to go, hear a Spanish greeting, which may not be advisable. Main conference number, you can add from spare or buy new, right? So you have multiple conference numbers. Right here, you have the option here to edit a custom greeting for your conference room. It's a text-to-speech greeting, right? So 250 characters. Even if I left this disabled, when I call my conference room number here, I still get a message saying, welcome to the conference, and then I'm prompted to enter the PIN number, or the conference room number, and then the PIN number. Main fax box, you can only have the main fax box number, right? So that's why I don't have the option to add from spare or buy new. For your new accounts, you would have them here. Then you have the edit fax box. Click on that, opens up a new window. So this one here, that is for your inbound fax notifications, right? So this email address, they get an email every time a fax gets sent into my system. Now, if someone dials my fax box number from their cell phone, right, then they hear fax tones and hangs up, this email address also gets an email saying, hey, there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, typically in the body of the email, right, oftentimes you'll see like a wireless caller, right, and then it gives you the phone number and then said, hey, there was a failed fax attempt. I don't know of a cell phone or any provider that allows you to dial from your cell phone and then switch to send a fax, right? So most likely what's happening in that case is someone misdialed, right? So they dialed your fax number by mistake from their cell phone. They heard the fax tones. Most of us don't like that sound, so we hang up. Still generates the email, so something just to be aware of that, saying, hey, you'll get these emails saying, hey, you had a failed fax attempt. Just make sure if it says wireless number, you pretty much know it was a misdial, but just double check the number to make sure, see if the number you recognize, saying, oh, I'm supposed to get a fax from them, right? Oh, and or if you were expecting a fax, then you might need to call that other person. The email permissions, this is designed to put your company domain, like so. And that means anyone with at virtualpbx.com email address, right? They can send a fax out from this system without having to be a user on the account. All right, and then you would click on Save Changes. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans but not others. And oops, I lost. Here we go. So again, this couple use cases, right? First, I talked about already was the submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. I have a Chinese attendant here and a Spanish one here, right? And so I just want to make use of submenus, right? Just multiple menu levels. Now, the other use case is if you own multiple businesses. Each of those businesses probably have their own main greeting and their own phone numbers, but let's say you have the same staff members answering calls for these two businesses. That's the other reason you'd have a secondary auto attendant. Clear up here at the top, you click Add Attendant. You enter an extension, a name for it, and an extension number. Right? The extension number is basically for your staff. Right? You can actually transfer calls from from a user to an attendant. All right, so let's say someone called in asking about my dog walking business versus my cleaning business. Right? And my staff member is like, oh, let me go ahead and transfer you to the right people. Right? Let's say I have a person who's just dealing with the cleaning aspect. They get transfer on the VoIP phone and then enter the extension number I created for my dog walking business. Right? Then you click on Create Attendant, and it would show up here. Now, once you've created an attendant, you can click on the name, and here, right, it says unavailable in main menu. This means I'm leaving this attendant as a standalone attendant, right? It's its own business. Whereas if you see here in Spanish, I clicked on there to make it available in main menu. So that's why it's a menu option under advanced call flows. Right? I can click this and then save changes. And now my Chinese attendant will show up as a menu option. So under my virtual receptionist, for example. Your auto attendants can have phone numbers, right? You can add from spare or buy new, and it would just show up here in this box like I have up here for Pooch Walk. Right, one of the numbers here. You can click on the gear icon to update the caller ID, E911, and Prepend. For anything that has an extension, if you need to change the extension number, I always recommend you add the new extension number first, right? And then click on Save Changes. That's weird. And then click on the extension box again and click Unassign next to the original extension number. And then we have the wrench icon here under Settings. And here you see I have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? So these times match what we already set up under the main number. So in the case of having multiple businesses, they all have to have the same hours of operation. All right. So if you have one business that's open 24/7 and one that's only Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you would need to talk to our account services team. It's possible we could do a custom configuration for you and keep it all on the same account. But usually there's a setup fee for that. And in terms of control, like updating things on your own, that's usually problematic for a custom configuration. So it might be easier for you to have two accounts, but you'd want to double check with our account services team, because if you have to go the multiple account route, usually they give you some kind of discount for having multiple accounts. At least that's what I've been told in the past. All right, but beyond that, right, this is a virtual receptionist. So you can add menu options. All right, you can select your main greeting, set your settings, click save, and save changes. Right, so you only have the option to send callers to the virtual receptionist for all those hours, right? Open hours, after hours, holidays. All right, devices shows all your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, so we can't send calls to it. Black means you've turned it off, right? And then green means it's registered, so we can send calls to it. Up here at the top, you can click on Add Device, and you have these options. SIP phone, this is that physical VoIP phone. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them, like Yealink, they have a ton of models. Others, not quite so many. So you want to find the make and model of the phone you're going to work with, and then you give it a name, right? Like Bob's phone, right? Or break room phone, right? Just something you can recognize. And then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device. Generally speaking, there's a sticker on the back or bottom of the phone that has the MAC address. Some of them are even helpfully labeled as MAC. Sometimes they're labeled as serial number. Sometimes they're not labeled. If the phone is plugged in, usually under its like basic settings or its status settings, you can find a heading or entry for MAC, right? MAC. And then you would just enter that information in this field. You would click on Create Device, and then you would go under Users and assign that device to that user. Now, once you've added a device, right, we can click on the little wrench icon here. You want to go to Miscellaneous. You want to click Unlock. Then you need to get into the phone's web user interface. Generally speaking, That is, get the IP address of the VoIP phone, enter that IP address into the address bar of your browser, log in, and then you need to enter in a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file. It does so. It reboots a couple times, and then it turns up as a green device. Now, for the specifics of that, for these various manufacturers, you want to go to our support pages, and you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers, the proper syntax for that URL because it differs slightly for each one, and in most cases, some settings you want to double check. Cell phone and landline are essentially the same, right? So you give it a name, right? Bob's phone, Angela's phone, what have you. And then here a number, you enter the plus sign, number 1, area code, and phone number. And then you click on Create Device. Now I'm going to click down here under this Aaron cell phone here. So you see here, I have the name of it. I have the +1 area code and phone number. I'm going to go to Advanced Options. This is the default settings for a cell phone or a landline. Now, in terms of what happens, so when call comes in, right, and let's say it's going to your cell phone rings, you pick up, and the first thing you'll hear is, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1, right? That's coming from our system. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call, right? It then connects that inbound caller to you, you begin speaking, right? So that message lets you know, oh, this is a work call, right? It's not a robodialer. What a pleasant surprise. Now, let's say, for instance, you added a cell phone, but the number you added is actually going to an automated answering service, right? So you're going to use that for your after hours. So that automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. Right? It doesn't have fingers. It doesn't even know. It just wants to accept the call. So in that scenario, you'd click on the little wrench icon, click Advanced Options, and this one here, allow use of cell phone's voicemail. You want to put a check mark in front of it. So now call comes into the system, goes out to this phone number. When we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? There's no message about pressing 1 to accept the call, right? We just hear pickup tone, we connect. Now, if this is really your cell phone and you have this box checked, right, that top box, if for some reason you don't pick up, right? Let's say you're being responsible and you're driving, you don't have the Bluetooth, connected to your phone because you're like, nope, I want to concentrate on driving because this stretch of road is crazy. Then let's say your cell phone voicemail picks up, right? With this enabled, that means that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. Now, the other thing that can come up is this one here. Keep original caller ID. So, say customer Mary calls into your system, right? Gets to your user, goes to your cell phone. It's ringing, you look at it, you don't recognize the number. You literally just had 8 calls in a row from robodialers, whether they're political calls or they're extending your auto warranty. You're like, nah, I'm done. You let the call go to voicemail. Maybe you're able to reconnect with customer Mary, maybe you're not. Now, a way to get around that without having to listen to anything would be to uncheck this. Right? So now when customer Mary calls you, instead of seeing her cell phone show up, it's going to be your main company number. This one that you selected up here under company caller ID number. Right? That's the phone number now that would show up on your cell phone. So now when you look at it, hopefully you would recognize your company phone number. You're like, this is a work call. Let me take it. Soft phone. Now, there is this warning message for soft phone and web phone every time. I do recommend you read that at least once. Then when you close it, so we're on the devices page. On the devices page, you can only add a third-party soft phone, right? Meaning you're using someone else's application. Or you have a physical VoIP phone and it didn't show up on the list of devices under SIP phone, so you're going to program it manually. right? So you would give it a name. You need to copy and paste the SIP username. Click on the SIP password box so you can see the SIP password. You want to copy and paste that. You do not want to change it. And then you want to copy and paste the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you need to program or provision your third-party softphone. If you want to add the VirtualPBX softphone, you need to do that on the users page directly. And we'll get to that once we get to the users page. Landline's the same as cell phone. Fax and ATA rarely come up. The web phone, you also want to add directly on the user because the web phone has a login page. It uses your dash login information. So until it's on a user, it doesn't have a way to log into it. Also, on these devices, especially the soft phones or any of the SIP phones, under the wrench icon, under advanced, you want to double check the audio. For the physical VoIP phones or the third-party soft phones, you want to make sure G711A and G711U are over here on the right under codecs. All right, for the VirtualPBX soft phones, you want Opus. Also, something that can come up on the physical phones, and I don't know if this one has it. It does not. Oh, sorry. For all the VoIP devices, under emergency caller ID, right, this is where you can select different phone numbers on your account and their associated addresses for E911 purposes. Right, greetings manager. This shows all your media files on the account, right? Voicemail greetings, main greetings, hold music. You have the names. Yeah, there's their source, right? So upload, you uploaded the file, right? TTS means text to speech. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You have the option here to play back the greeting right here in the browser, so you can see if it's still relevant. You also have the option to download it, right? So the playback is actually a relatively new feature. So before you used to have to just download it and listen to it on your computer. And that's still an option, right? In case for some reason it's not playing back in your browser for whatever reasons, you can download it and then listen to it. The other reason you might want to download it is that way you have a copy of it someplace, right? So like as a backup, right? Especially in case of your main greetings. So that way for if someone happens to record it over the phone for the holidays, you still have a backup of your normal main greeting. So that way you can put it back in place. Little wrench icon here. You can click on that. You can change the name of it so it's something you'll recognize it, or you can just remove it, right? Because you no longer need it. Groups, also referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments. You click add group at the top. You give it a name and an extension number, right? It has to have its own extension number, right? You don't want to reuse extensions. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. You click on create group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name, right? So you can always change the name. And then here you have the group call attempts. Little arrows here to the right so you can increase or decrease it. And this is how many times the system will offer calls to those group members. Right, so you can literally have it offered to them like 3 times, 10 times, what have you. And then save changes. Next, we have the members box. So here are my 5 staff members. I have this setup is what's referred to as blast ringing or ring all, right? So it's ringing everybody at the same time for the same amount of time. Along the top here, these are timestamps, and this last one you can edit. The default is 120 seconds. You can click this distribute button. So now everyone's ring is in order, right? So it rings Aaron, then David, then Matt, Michael, then Peter, then Gio. Let's say I don't like that order. Let's say Aaron just got a big project that we need him to focus on, right? But he still needs to be part of the call queue or this call group. So instead of removing him, what I can do is I can click on his name and drag him down to the bottom. Now, right here, I haven't changed anything yet. 1, I haven't clicked Save Changes, but 2, he's still at the 0-second mark, so he's still first. And let's say I want Geo to be taking more of these calls. We'll do something like that. Now I can click distribute again. So now Geo's first, and you see here Aaron's at the end. Right? If I want to remove someone from this group, right, I just click on the big remove button. If I want to add more people, right, down here at the bottom left, I click add user, and I click on the box in front of their name, and I click select. It's right here. Hold on. Here, we'll hit select, and you see here he's at the beginning. I can click distribute again. Right, now these are sliders, so I can adjust the durations so I can have more overlap. Oops. It's a little picky, as you can see. Or I'm having problems with my mouse. I'm not sure which one's which. All right, so I can do something like that as well. Any changes you make, you would click on Save Changes. Now, those are the only routing options you have on a group, right? ACD queues have different options, a little bit more flexible in some regards. Right, groups can have extensions, right? That's typically for transfer purposes. You can add multiple if you need to. Groups can also have their own phone numbers. Right? You can add from spare or buy new. One thing to keep in mind is because these phone numbers on groups are not a main number or an auto attendant number, they do not have hours of operation. And that means they're available 24/7. A couple things to know about groups or versus queues. So in groups, your staff members can answer calls with cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. On queues, currently, you can only use it with VoIP phones. Right? Cell phones are coming. I believe they're still testing. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is for your users in a group, when they're offered a call from that group, all the devices on their user will ring, right? So let's say Aaron has 4 devices, right? Any call that comes in from this front desk group that's offered to him, all 4 of his phones will ring, right? There's a user feature called Follow Me that you can, as an admin, you can set up like the phones, which order they ring in. Calls from the group, ignore that feature completely. Right. The other thing for group members, they can't log themselves out of the group, right? Unless they're system admin, they can remove themselves. Whereas in a queue, your staff members can mark themselves as ready or away or even end their session. Right. And then we have group features. All right, ringback. This allows you to have a media file play for the inbound caller. So by default, right, calls come into the group. We send calls out to your group members. When either all of them or your first to whatever members, whatever their devices start to ring, that ringing sound is piped back to your inbound caller. If you don't want that sound being piped back to your inbound caller, you would enable ringback and then upload an MP3 or .wav file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Now, and then you would click on Save Changes. If for some reason that ringing sound isn't coming back from your staff members, then the ringback file won't play because it's there to replace the ringing sound. So that ringing sound needs to be there in the first place. That doesn't happen very often. Next action, to me, this is probably the most important group feature, because if no one picks up, what do you want the system to do with the call? And you have a pull down here. Usually goes to voicemail boxes, but you can send it to another group, an ACD queue, a user. You can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to a specific device, etc. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your staff members can make use of call forwarding, right? I.e., they're not at their normal desk phone, so they're forwarding calls to, say, their cell phone. Oops. Oh, caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text or numbers to show up on your staff members' VoIP phones displays. right? So if you have people in multiple groups, this could help them to give them a heads up about what the call might be about. Numbers. This takes you to your numbers in use, right? So this shows you where your numbers are assigned. You can't unassign them here. You can't assign them here, right? You can only just see their status. You can click on the little gear icon so you can update the caller ID, the E911, and the prepend. Under spare numbers, right? So these are the numbers you're not using. This is where you would get rid of them. Right, so let us get rid of this 866 number here. Right, now I have the option up here to delete. Right, if I uncheck it, now that delete option is gone. Right, but then I click on delete. It says, are you sure? I'm confirming the deletion. It says it's completed it, and now that number is gone. So now I have removed that number from my account. You can still buy numbers here, right? Local toll free, it would just add them as additional spare numbers. Port actually starts the port process. Choose local toll free. And then you need to upload a copy of your bill in PDF. And then acknowledge that it's within 30 days. After that, you're entering the address associated with the phone numbers, the numbers that you want to port, who's being notified, right? The email address. You can also request a specific port date. However, that's what we can request, right? So it needs to be at least a day in the future, ideally several days. And we pass that on as part of the port request. However, we don't control that, right? Your other carrier, they get to control when they release the numbers to us. Then you have the opportunity to download a blank LOA, letter of agency, and then upload a completed and signed letter of agency. For the information on the LOA, it should match what your current carrier has on file for you. Right? So the company name should match, the address they have on file for you should match. It does need a signature. Right now, it can be a digital signature, that's fine. Or you can print it out, sign it, and scan it back in, right? But typing your name twice results in a rejection every time and a delay in your port completing. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take 3 to 5 business days if everything is correct. Local numbers usually average 2 to 3 weeks. In terms of rejections, we don't always get very specific information, right? We'll get like address mismatch or zip code mismatch. Or like we'll say, get like company name mismatch. They'll never tell us what the correct information is. All right, so we double checked, make sure we didn't have a typo. Or in the case of like an address, like you might have an address on the LOA, but there might be a different address on the bill you submitted. We'll check both, we'll try with both addresses. If both get rejected, then we'll contact you saying, here are the addresses we tried, they didn't work. You need to you need to call your other carrier and find out what the correct information needs to be. All right, users shows all the users on the account. The gray people are your standard users. People with the blue suit, those are your system admins. Right, that means they can do all the stuff we've been talking about. Up here at the top, you click on Add User, and you fill out the form, right? First name, last name, just needs something here. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So no reusing of email addresses. As an admin, you then create a password for them, and then you enter the extension number for them. Now the system will typically enter or give you a suggestion. You can ignore it, right? So let's say I don't want to use 1022. Let's say I want to use 5001, right? Let's say I added or I started a new business and my staff members for them are going to have 5000 series extension numbers. I do generally recommend 4-digit extensions, gives you a little bit of flexibility and growth. By default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for a new user that's intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say I didn't create one. If I tried to create a voicemail box manually later, I don't have a way to properly associate it with the person. And for instance, Let's say I create the user, I add a VoIP phone, right? And I left the voicemail box created. That user, when the VoIP phone's registered, they could pick it up, dial *98 on their phone, hit send. That logs them into this voicemail box I just created for them. The system will then ask them to create a PIN number for the voicemail box and then walk them through their voicemail greeting or setting up their voicemail greeting, right? So then they're all set as far as the voicemail is concerned. Include in the user directory. You can always change your mind later. Then we have send emails to an alternate address. So by default, the system sends system messages to the user via the email address used for login, right? So voicemail notifications, password resets. If for some reason you as an admin don't want them going to that address, you can click on this box here and then enter a different email address in this field. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I think that's important, so I usually check it. But basically that means the system will send them an email with their login information. If you're creating one user, click on create user. If you're creating multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right? You can change their name. If you click on change credentials here, right, you can change their email address or their password. You can also send them the password reset email, right, so they can create their own password. Change PIN number. This lets you change the voicemail box PIN number. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's your option to be in the company directory. Over here on the right, this first pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Second pull down here, this is to change the time zone, right? So that way their voicemail timestamps are correct. Little flag icon here. This is to change the display language of the web pages, right? So whenever they log into Dash, you can change the display language: English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout on Aaron here is grayed out because he has the follow me feature enabled. If I go to Bob, you see here, I have the ringing timeout. By default, it's 20 seconds. Plenty of time to go to a landline or a VoIP phone. To a cell phone, maybe not, right? So when we send a call out to a landline, right, gets to the landline telecom, they just go, oh, it's right here. They know exactly where that phone is, right? Versus when we had to send a call out to a cell phone telecom, the cell phone telecom goes, hold on a second, we need to find them first, right? Ping cell phone towers, then send the call to you. That delay, that trying to find you, is why you might need to have this ring time set to 30 seconds or 45 even, if the user is only using a cell phone. All right, users can have extensions. They can have multiple if you want them to. You can also have users have phone numbers, right? They can have multiple, so you can add from spare or buy new. All right, you have a little gear icon here, so you can enter the address for E911 or caller ID. All right, up here, so you have the devices box, so you can see all the devices for a particular user. You can add from spare, meaning you have devices that you're not currently using, or you can add new, right? So here you can add everything that you can on the devices page. I typically prefer adding devices directly to the user, period, and especially for the soft phone, right? For the VirtualPBX soft phone, you have to add it directly to the user. So we'll click here, soft phone here. We still get that warning message. Now we got the big box about to show up. And you see down here at the bottom, it says use third-party application. When you click on that, it flips it. Now it says use VirtualPBX application, meaning the VirtualPBX soft phone. So now I just need to give it a name. And then I click on create device. And then I click on save changes. When I click on save changes, Aaron here will get an email saying, hey, your new VirtualPBX soft phone has been created. And then it gives them the login information as well as download links. Right. Other thing that you may want to add here directly is the web phone. Still get that error message. You just need to give it a device name and then create device and then save changes. Next, we have user features. Caller ID number, it's only available for users that have their own phone number. When you turn this on, you select their phone number or one of their phone numbers. You click on Save Changes. Now this phone number becomes Aaron's outbound caller ID whenever he makes a call out, instead of the main number that we set up under the dashboard, right, under company caller ID. Virtual text, this is a new feature. I believe it's on all new plans. Older plans, you'd have to talk to our account services team. You basically turn it on, and then from the pull down, you select a phone number. It's the numbers available are the user's number, or number on the auto attendant, or the main numbers. And then you click on Save Changes. Once that's done, Aaron gets an email saying welcome to virtual text with a login link. Should have his user details as well, so he can log in. He can also download the virtual text app on his phone. And then you can text, right? You can send and receive texts. The main advantage of virtual text is you can share a number among your staff member. So like for your main numbers, you can share that to all your staff members. So that way everybody can take part in handling texts to and from customers, right? So that way no text is left idle for too long. Voicemail box. This is essentially the default settings. Transcription is a plan-specific feature. All it is the system will listen to your voicemail and try to type out what it thinks it said, right? And when it types it out, that's in the email notification you get. So with transcription on, right, you'd get the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, the extension, and then you'd say a bunch of text of where the system is typing out what the voicemail said. You'll still get it with the voicemail to email enabled. You'll still get an MP3 attachment that you can then click on and listen to. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. So if you have people who are not good about cleaning up their voicemail boxes and that's not something you want to do, then you can turn on this feature here, delete messages from the database after the notification is sent. So voicemail is left, right? System sends an email to the user, then the system deletes the voicemail box from the account, or the voicemail from the voicemail box, excuse me, from the account. So what that means is with delete messages enabled, your staff member can only ever check their voicemails via email, right? If you leave this unchecked, that means my staff member, they can check via email, but they can log into the user portal and check their voicemails there. They can log into their voicemail box over their phone and listen to their voicemails that way, right? So it gives more versatility. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. And when you first enable it, it actually looks like these bottom two, right? It says, do not ring. Because the system wants to know what devices you actually want to use. Right now, I can enable these, and these are sliders, right? So I can do that. I have the little timestamps up here at the top, right? So just like groups, I can click distribute. So now it's ringing in this order. I can click and drag, click distribute again. So now it's doing my Yay link, then my web phone, and then these two looking like solid phones, and then save changes. Fax box, users can have their own fax boxes if you want them to. You don't have to. I recommend if you do this to use a phone number. This way the user can send and receive faxes. You do have the option to assign a new extension number for this fax box. However, that limits your user to only ever receiving faxes. And the other thing to be concerned about is some of these electronic fax services, right? Email to fax services, they may not allow you to fax to an extension number, right? They may not have a way to, or that might be a premium charge, right? Even with a standard fax machine, you're relying on that inbound person, right, to dial your main number, hear the greeting, enter the extension number that they want to fax to, and then tapping on send fax on their fax machine. Or their fax machine allows them to program additional entry, right? So phone number, period, or comma, comma, extension number. Conference bridge, right? You can click enable. As an admin, the only thing you really need to do is turn on the personal conference room PIN or enter a PIN number for them, and the user can adjust that later under the user portal. The video conferencing, this is only within your Dash users, right? So outside people will not be able to partake. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own via the user portal or even via their VoIP phones. Failover mode is something you have to set up. This is for if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right, turns red, then you can send it to a desk phone or a mobile phone, enter +1 area code and phone number, save changes. So now, if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right, a call happens to come into the user, the system will automatically forward it to the phone number you designated. Right, so that way your staff member can handle the call and then afterwards, investigate why did their VoIP phone stop working. Like, maybe the dog ran by and pulled out the Ethernet cable. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this. Right, you need to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record. So, inbound internal, coworker Bob called. All right, inbound external, customer Mary. Outbound internal, that means I called coworker Bob. Right, outbound external means I called customer Mary. Now you don't have to do all on, right? You can say I don't care about the internal calls, and then save changes. Now every account includes at least some amount of storage included with it. But once you go over the allotted amount, you would get an overage fee based on a per gigabyte basis. For specifics of that, you want to talk to our account services team. If you have high call volume and you're recording all your calls, you'd probably want to look at having AWS integration enabled on your account, something you'd want to talk to our account services team. That allows you to link or have your call storages shunted over to AWS instead of with us. And AWS has much better pricing for high volume. Music on hold, you can choose to have your users have their own hold music. Right? You would just upload a .wav or .mp3 file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Like for instance, you would have your tech support people have a hold music that tries to direct people to their website for support or email support or what have you, or like, hey, this new feature came out and here's where the guide is. Whereas your salespeople hold music, you'd probably have something about special promotions that are currently running. Do not disturb. That just means calls aren't going to be offered to you or offered to that user. Hot desking is a VoIP feature. When you click enable, you need to give a hot desk ID to the user. Up to you if you want to request a PIN number. The use case for this is generally speaking in a shared office environment or as hybrid scheduling, right? Where you may have reduced your office footprint so you have less desks and less VoIP phones available on a daily basis. But the idea is your staff members only, aren't all there at the same time. So let's say Aaron comes in the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone at desk number 2. He hits *11. That turns hot desking on that phone. He then enters his hot desk ID number, and the system will tell him that calls will now be sent to that device. So the rest of his workday, right, he's getting calls at the phone he's sitting at. Now, the end of his day, he'd pick up his phone, hit *12, turns off hot desking, and then he goes home, right? The next time he comes into the office, he sits down at desk number 7, does the same thing, picks up the phone, *11, hot desk ID. Now calls are being sent to him at desk number 7. Right, voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Right, if you have a name here, that means this was created with the user. Without a name means it was either manually created or system created. You can create your own up here at the top. You just need a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you click on create voicemail box. Once a voicemail box is created, you want to go under advanced and go to greeting media. Here you can upload a media file or choose one that's already selected. The temporary file, this is for use for out of office or vacation status. Right, so if something is selected under temporary, it plays. It supersede anything selected under media. Once you put temporary back to none, then the whatever file selected under media will play. Next, under recipients, here is you can add recipients to a voicemail box. Now, your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. But for any voicemail box you create, you'd want to come here, click where it says add new recipient, and then enter an email address here. If you need to only add the one, then you can click Save Changes. If you need to add multiple, so let's say you made a department voicemail box, but you want all the staff members to get that voicemail, you would click Add, enter a new email address, click Add again to add the next one, etc. until you're done, and then click on Save Changes. Then under Options, so media files in place, recipients in place, you can check on Already Set Up. Then here, do you want to delete after notification? And you want to make sure that attached emails, voicemails to emails enabled. And then you click on Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is, or DISA. What DISA is actually, DISA is not actually enabled on new accounts on sign up. So that's something to be aware of. But it does allow you to call into your system with a cell phone or a landline, and then make an outbound call from your system, right? So that way, when you make that outbound call, instead of your cell phone number showing up, it's going to be your main company number. So if you want this feature enabled, you need to talk to our account services team. But once it's here, then it would show up under advanced routing. You would click enable. And by default, the system just creates a PIN number for you. This setup right now means you'd have to set up DISA as a menu option under your virtual receptionist or one of your auto attendants. That's not recommended, right? Because someone can accidentally hit a menu option, and there's those kinds of people who like, oh, you want a PIN number? Challenge accepted. And then they try to get the PIN number. Once they do, then they'll hear dial tone. Someone eventually would decide, well, let's make a call out and see what happens. Right, so then they're making calls on your account without knowing it. So an extra level of security you can add is when you click, click Edit Settings, and then click on Add Extension. Now, here's an extension number. I would say you use an extension number of a series that's not already on your system. All right, so something like that, and then you click Save Changes. So now, any of your staff members can call in, right, from their cell phone or landline to your virtual receptionist or your auto attendants, right? Enter in this extension number you just created. The system will then prompt them for the PIN number. Then they'll hear dial tone. Then they enter area code and phone number and dial out. And when they do that, again, instead of your cell phone number showing up as the outbound caller ID, right, it's your main company number. And we'll go ahead and disable that. So one way to know about the calls that are on your system is via your call logs. Now, there's probably not a lot on this one just because we're at the beginning of the month. But you see here, inbound call came in and it rang to this particular device, right? And when I see normal clearing, especially on this leg here, that tells me the call ended normally. Right? Nothing weird happened. Whereas this call here, right, I have a little yellow arrow to the left. That means it's an outbound call, but I see it's legit because it came out from a device on my account, and then it went to this phone number, and it lasted this long. This little icon here, a little fire hydrant, you can click on that. That's going to create an email, right, that's already addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details. You're going to want to type in the body of the email what happened or the context of why you are sending this in to us. I.e., I had bad audio, or my phone didn't actually ring, or something like of that nature. Right, feature codes. Here you see the various feature codes, and all feature codes are a way for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. All right, this information is actually a web page on our support page. There's also a document there called Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has the context of how to use these various features. I've already talked about a couple, right? Here's the call forwarding one, which I mentioned. Here's the hot desking ones I talked about, etc. All right, so that's the dashboard. Let's go over here. We got a blacklist. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers you're blocking from reaching your system. You click on Edit Blacklists, and you would click on either Add to create a new one, or you would click on an existing list. Right, you give it a name, and then you decide if you're blocking anonymous calls. Right, so that means inbound caller, and we're not getting or we're not seeing their phone number. Right, they either blocked it or it's incorrect or something. If you turn this on, they're not reaching your system. They get busy tone. Down here, you would click on Add Number, and then you put +1 area code and phone number. Right, no parentheses, no dashes, no spaces. And you keep clicking Add and adding phone numbers to this list until you're done. Then you would click Save. Then you go back to Settings, and you make sure your list is over here to the right under Selected. All right, so everything on these 3 lists, on every phone number, are being blocked, right? Then you click Update just to make sure the system is fully updated. So now, whenever the phone numbers on these lists call, they get busy tone. Faxes, this takes you to your fax manager. You can get to any fax box on the account. You can see the date and the time. And this is on inbound faxing. So this is the date and time it came in. I can download the file to view the fax. I can click on the box and I can get rid of it as well. Or sort if I have a lot of faxes. The Outbound Facts tab. Again, you can go by any of your fax boxes on the account. I don't know if I have any. It looks like I don't. But here you would see the status of your outbound faxes. If you see a failure here, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax machine. Now, there'll be a little icon here under on the far right. It's basically a bunch of horizontal lines. You can click on that, and it might give you additional details, like user busy means the line was busy, right? Busy tone. Sometimes it just says fax status failed. The email to fax logs, this shows you where the system had a problem processing their request to fax out. So here you see the email address, so you can make sure it's someone who's properly has proper permissions, right? Then here you have the format of the email that they sent out. Date, the time, you have a little eyeball icon here. If you click on that, and then you see, oh, the actual error, no valid attachments. Now, that can mean no attachment was included, right? Someone typed it all in, clicked send without actually hitting attach. I've been there, I've done that. It could also be that they attached like a JPEG instead of a PDF or a TIFF file. Number Manager, this takes you back to your spare numbers page. Reports Actually doesn't work on my streaming software. This opens a new tab, takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature, allows you to create your own reports. We have a demo on our YouTube channel. So if you go under videos, you're looking for the advanced reports demo, gives you an idea of what can be done with the advanced reporting. If you end up being interested in that, you'd want to talk to our account services team, as that's a plan-specific feature. Voicemails, this takes you to the voicemail manager, and you can get to any voicemail box on the account. All right, so here you can see the date and the time of when the message came in, who it came from, and the phone number. Right, the phone number they got dialed, the duration. You can play it back, you can download it, and look at the technical details. It doesn't tell you much. If you click on the box in front of it, the main thing is you can move this voicemail message to another user, right, to another user's voicemail box. But you can also change its status, right? So you can get rid of a voicemail box if the voicemail box is full. ACD queues, this is an upgrade to existing plans. It's possible that you may need to change plans and then be able to add the queues as an upgrade on top of all of that. Right, so ACD stands for automatic call distribution, right? It's a call center feature. It's a more advanced version of groups. However, currently you're primarily limited to using VoIP phones to accept calls. Let me click on the gear icon here. So when you create a queue, right, you need to give it a name, and then you choose either a phone number or an extension for the queue. You cannot have both, one or the other. Now, it can still be a menu option, right, from your virtual receptionist or your auto attendants. You have the queue routing strategy, this pull down, you can select from. And round robin equalizes out over time. There's most idle, right? So whoever's been waiting the longest gets this call. Least calls, least amount of connected calls, right? So if Mary's only had 2 connected calls and Bob has had 5 connected calls, Mary gets the next call that comes in. And then least offers, which is the combination of missed and connected calls. A hold treatment, you can upload, a file, right? MP3, .wav. I believe in the queues, you can upload a 5 megabyte file. Oh, I should also point out, there are 2 kinds of queues available. Sorry about that. So what you're seeing here are the standard ACD queues. So we also have ACD queues Pro. They're more advanced. There's more features. So like hold treatment, for instance, under the Pro queues, you can have multiple music file playing, or different, in order, right? Select one and then have a different one play. You can also do things like announce their position online or announce their expected wait time. Whereas in the standard queues, you can only just have hold music. We do have a demo for ACD Queues Pro under the YouTube channel, so I would strongly recommend you take a look at that if you're interested in queues at all to see which ones meet your needs. Queue timeout measured in seconds, right? How much time people can wait on hold, right? Inbound callers. Your queue call limit is how many people can wait on hold. So what I have set to 4, right? That means 4 people can wait on hold. That's on top of anyone who's already speaking to my staff members. Now, timeout immediately if empty. If I have no staff members logged into my queue, then with this enabled, I'm telling the system to treat those callers as if they've already reached that 3,600 seconds. Now, this one here, escalation call flow after timeout, is after that 3,600 seconds, what do you want the system to do? And you select from the pull down. All right, so like this case, I'm sending it to a voicemail box, but you can send it to a group, another queue, back to your main auto attendant, etc. Now the zero out call flow, if you have it set to none, it's not enabled, right? When you use the pull down to select something, then what you're saying is your inbound callers can press 0 to get out of the queue, right? So when they do that, where are you sending them? Again, groups, users, voicemail box, etc., or even to another queue. Right, agent behavior. So agent recovery time is how much time your staff members are given between calls, right? So I end a call, the system will wait, in this case, 15 seconds before it offers me a second call from the queue. Force away on reject or missed. If my staff members miss a call, then the system will automatically put their status as away until they mark themselves as ready once again. Agent connect timeout measured in seconds. Default is 20, which is plenty of time for a VoIP phone. Once cell phones become live or official, you may want to increase that to 30 or 45 for anyone who's taking a call on a cell phone. All right, so once you've created queues, over here on the left, click on the little members icon. This list of people is who is already available to be my queues. All right, so if you just created the queues for the first time, there'll be nothing here. But you click Manage Members, and now anyone that you want to be in the queue, you click on their name and to highlight it, and then add as a member up here at the top, that green button. Oops, it looks like Gio has some sort of conflict. So we'll add Mike. Ow, Mike. Something weird is going on. Normally you don't get that kind of error message. But likewise, to remove someone, right, you can click on their name and click remove, and now they're no longer available to be in queues. So once you have people over here on the right under call center members, you go back to your queues, and then you would click on agents, and then you can click and drag staff members over to be in a queue. And then you can click on managers. You can make any of the staff members, right? So I can make Bob a manager if I wanted to, and click Save Changes. All right, so let's take this back to, for your staff members, right? They can log into the website, come here to the queues. They would click on Begin Session. Now that starts them off as being in away mode. They should click on the little phone icon here, and then they'll see their devices available. Now, the default is the system will have them on Select All. That is not recommended. So what you would want to do is select a specific device. Hopefully it's green. It just means I'm not logged into it. Then they click the phone icon again, and now they mark themselves as ready. So now I have a little green bar here. You notice Josh here is red. So Josh is away, right? So he's not going to be offered calls. But if a call comes into this queue now, I will be offered the call. While I'm being offered a call, my little bar here will turn a light blue. When I'm on an inbound call from the queue, it'll be a dark blue. If I'm on a call outside of the queue, right? Let's say I called a customer back or someone dialed my extension number directly, the bar turns yellow. If I'm on wrap-up time, it turns gold. Pro queues, they also have a performance icon here, so you can, manager and admin can compare agents to each other in terms of their call volume and statistics. Pro queues also, your admins or managers, they can eavesdrop on a call that's active, right? They can whisper to your staff member. They can barge into a call as well. Dynamic caller ID, plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. Edit here. So here, you give it a name. I chose a phone number on my account, in this case, a 408 number. And in this case, I chose this rule saying, whenever my staff members dial a 408 phone number, automatically, from their VoIP phones, automatically change their outbound caller ID to this phone number I selected. Right, so then I click on Save Changes. This one here, this allows you to create your own feature code. right? So it relies on my staff members. In this case, hit star 550, then area code and phone number they're reaching out to from their VoIP phone. The system will then automatically change their outbound caller ID to this phone number. So it looks like a local call to them. Monitor is also a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Doesn't matter what phone they're using. Right, so if anyone was on a call, they'd have their box would be blue. You would see information about the date, the time, and phone numbers involved. You can sort by who's available and who's busy, as well as by what device is in use versus just the staff member's user. Over here, you have on the left the active inbound calls. Each active inbound call would have its own little box, so you can see the details of those. You also have the parked calls, and if there were any here, they'd have their parking spot number listed as well. Recording Manager, this will depend on your setup. By default, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It will ask you to log in, which you just use your -login information, and you can then see your call recordings. You can listen to them, you can download them, you can delete them. If you have AWS integration enabled and linked with an AWS account, this recording manager, actually I might just say recordings at that point, that will actually take you to your AWS page so you can see the recordings there, listen to them. You should be able to download and delete them there as well. Webhooks, this is a plan-specific feature. You'd actually need to talk to our sales team about this. This allows you to create links between Dash and other software. This does require some level of programming, right? But basically you do new webhook, you would fill out these parameters, create the hook, and then on the other side, do something similar to link, say, Dash to, say, Zapier. On our YouTube channel, we do have an Introduction to Zapier webinar. So if you're interested in webhooks, I definitely strongly recommend you take a look at that video. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com. You'll see sample code there of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. And then we have the user portal. Every user has their own individual user portal. So as an admin, you can't get to anyone's user portal. But here you have the voicemail tab to start off with. So if this user had any active or new voicemails, right, they'd show up here. You get the date, the time, phone numbers involved, the option to play back, delete, or keep it as listened. The call history tab shows their call history, right, to and from, etc. They can adjust the date range as well. Faxes only works for a user that has their own fax box, but they can see their fax history. The contact list is your Dash contact list, right? So basically everything within your Dash account. Your standard users cannot make any adjustments, right? This is a view-only page or set of pages. But this is for things like the auto attendants, the groups, users, etc. Next up, we have the conference tab. Over here on the right, this is where your users would adjust their PIN numbers. Then they have the option, do people come in deafened or muted? Are people playing entry and exit tones? Up here, over to the top left, here's you can invite other Dash users to your conference, right? That's already started. You can lock it so no one else can join. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference call. Also, while you're in a conference, right, each participant and each moderator has their own box. So you can mute a specific person or kick them out. And then settings and devices. This is where your users would enable their own call forwarding. Put +1 area code and phone number, and then click save. Or turn it off and click save again. And that is everything. And I'm sorry I ran a little long. I'll have to work on the timing of this. But I don't see any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream for today. Thank you for your time, and we'll be back again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time.